Hello, this is Saturday Afternoon Wrestling. I am Dustin, and it is a great day to talk about wrestling because this long Labor Day weekend we have both WWE Bash in Berlin and NXT No Mercy. So plenty of wrestling going on and to enjoy. But before I get to the preview and predictions for those shows, we did last weekend have AEW All In, the massive Wembley Stadium show that I think went off pretty much without a hitch, just about. So this week on Dynamite, there was a ton of fallout surrounding that. We'll go through that in a little bit as well, just to get caught up on everything before we hit those WWE shows. But first, before any of that, couple big news things that happened this week as well. Not the most fun to talk about, but important to put out there. First off, rest in peace to Sycho Sid Vicious. Sid Eudy passed away at the age of 63, way too young, an absolute legend of pro wrestling. If you did not watch Sycho Sid or Sid Vicious back in the day in the WWF or WCW, you were missing out. He was built like what you would like old action figures, basically, like before the face scans and everything got like really good, and all the figures were just like big, tall, buff, blonde dudes. Like he literally looked like what you would want a pro wrestler to look like if you made them like in a lab or asked AI to generate the picture of like the perfect pro wrestler. He was incredible. I saw a lot of people calling him Brock Lesnar before Brock Lesnar, saying that, he was in line to be the next Hulk Hogan until all of the old wrestling politics kind of got in the way. And he is someone who, despite having a couple really funny quotes that tend to get brought up a lot with him, and then also the horrific moment of him breaking his leg in the ring as well, which kind of changed his career forever after that. But even though those are kind of the things that come to a lot of people's minds first, the thing that really surprised me was how consistently over he was with the crowd. I was watching back old clips and things after I heard the news. I posted a short clip as well that it was crazy to see the outpouring of people that really loved him and really grew up loving watching him in his matches, and it kind of gave me a new perspective on things as someone who was not super locked into WWF at that time, because I was just too young. I don't think I started watching until like 96, 97 when I was 6 or 7 years old. And then I wasn't a big WCW person really either. Like I knew what it was and I would kind of bounce around, but so it was really cool to see all of these memories and all of these people kind of letting out their feelings on it and showing respect and talking about oh man, I loved watching Sid in the mornings, or I remember seeing the power bomb at night. Like I remember hearing JR call the power bomb, and just really cool things like that. And so it's a shame that he's gone so soon. Like I said, 63 years old is way too young. But the outpouring of respect and love and admiration that people had for him, I think, speaks to more of what he was like as a man outside of the ring, where Sycho Sid, super unpredictable. I kind of always saw him being great with fans and kids and always having time for people, and so many wrestlers shared stories about him having time to talk and share some pointers, and just how open and loving he was. And so that's just a really cool thing to see, is all that outpouring of love. So rest in peace, Sycho Sid. And then also in upsetting news that we don't really have a whole lot of news on, Nikki Garcia, aka Nikki Bella's husband, Artem, I'm not even going to try his last name, Artem from Dancing with the Stars, was arrested the other day on a felony domestic battery charge, and nothing else has come out about it. Nikki, through her publicist, I think this morning, Friday morning, put out a statement that was like, this is a private matter. That's it. Like, give us our space. And no one really knows what happened. All I know, based on like the internet sleuths that I saw, is Bryan Danielson unfollowed Artem on Instagram. So like, not the biggest scoop, but that's a horrible situation. I know they have a young son, Mateo, and they just celebrated a wedding anniversary. So who knows what happened, but I really just hope that Nikki and that their son are okay, because that's that's scary. That's scary to think about. It's crazy that that would happen so close to an anniversary and in such a notable public facing couple. So really hope those guys are okay, and we'll see what comes out about it more as more days go by, as more news comes out. But just really a terrible situation, kind of all around. In less serious news, there's a lot of contract talk going on these days across both companies. WWE in particular had announced a bunch of re-signings recently. They announced that Nikki Cross, Angel Garza, and Humberto Carrillo have all re-signed recently, like within the last month. But there's a couple people, notably, that the contract talks really seem to be kind of constant with right now. And the first one is Kevin Owens, who's, I thought his contract was like locked in for a couple more years. I did not think his extension that he signed a few years ago was already up. Like, time is just barreling by like a freight train, and it's crazy. But he is apparently going to be coming up on his contract in like 5 months. So really interesting. I don't know if he would, leave WWE per se. I think they can offer probably the best in terms of like compensation and status on the card, but he's also kind of done everything in WWE that there is to do. He had his dream match where he got to wrestle Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania in the main event. And, his other WrestleMania main event was with his longtime best friend and wrestling soulmate, Sami Zayn. So, like, if he were to be like, I kind of want to go hit AEW and wrestle with those guys and do all sorts of crazy stuff to kind of cap the end of, my prime wrestling career, I'd be surprised, but I also wouldn't really blame him. I think it'll be interesting to see, though, because like I said, I really don't think he's going to leave. And the other one, it's not even this person talking about his contract, but Jey Uso's contract has been brought up so many times, and almost all of them are from Rikishi, his father, which, like, I don't know if Rikishi is, like, hoping to get a cut of, like, negotiating his deal or what is happening, because that dude is bringing up Jey Uso's contract so often on his podcast. Like, he was talking about how Jey Uso should just go to AEW where he gets used more and gets used properly, because even though he's super over, he's not getting booked right. He should have a title. It's crazy. And obviously, Rikishi and that entire family are so entrenched in WWE's history and the business side of things and everything. But it's just crazy because, like, I kind of see where he's coming from, because yes, Jey Uso, like, is talented enough to be holding these types of titles and to be doing really meaningful storylines, but he's also like the most over person every night on a show. He's probably selling close to the most merch, if not the most merch of anybody. He's always really prominently displayed, and it's clear at this point that we're kind of heading towards an OG Bloodline reunion where they can take on the new Bloodline, and that's going to put him right back in the middle of probably the hottest story in WWE for whenever that's happening. So it feels like it's more impatience than anything, because like again, like with Kevin Owens, I don't see a world where Jey Uso just leaves WWE. Like in AEW, I can't even fathom what he would be called. Like, would he be like Yeet Man, or like what would his name be? Would he just be like Jay Fatu? Like, I really don't know. It's such an interesting thing to think about. Like, would he leave without Jimmy? Would they just do the Usos tag team in AEW? Like, I don't know. It's weird to think about, but it's just interesting that it keeps coming up so often with Rikishi. I don't know if he's trying to leverage or what the deal is, but something that I just had to bring up because I see it almost every day now. There's a new Rikishi quote about Jey Uso's positioning on the card and why it should be better. And then speaking of contract news, again on the AEW side of things, to kind of get into AEW here a bit, obviously the news broke earlier this week. I think I talked about it in the recap episode for All In. Swerve Strickland signed a new deal with All Elite Wrestling like right before All In started. I think he signed it either on the air or like in video that was released. Like, he publicly signed it though. And he is now apparently going to be under contract through 2028 where he is one of the highest paid people on the AEW roster, which hats off to him, deserves every penny and probably more, because the man is an absolute master in what he is doing right now. He knows exactly who he is and what he's about, and that presentation is spot on. And then Daniel Garcia made his big return to AEW at All In as well, helping Will Ospreay win the international title back. And apparently he had not signed a contract yet. Tony Khan mentioned that and just kind of said in the All In press conference afterwards, like, it's a good sign that he's here. And then he showed up again on Wednesday and cut an unbelievable promo against MJF to set up a match between the two of them at All Out next weekend. And it kind of feels like all signs are pointing to him staying. There was a report that came out Friday morning, this morning, from Dave Meltzer that said that WWE thought that Swerve and Garcia were obviously going to stay in AEW, and that the amount of money they were signing for was bad for wrestling, essentially. Like, didn't view them as like those types of value wrestlers. And I gotta be honest, I don't really believe that for a second. I feel like all year Dave Meltzer has been wrong about a lot of WWE things, and moreover than that, like his AEW legiancy kind of seems obvious. Like, it feels like he's always a little more favorable towards AEW when it comes to, you know, comparing the two companies. So I really take that last part with a grain of salt. Maybe, you know, they thought that, Daniel Garcia and Swerve are going to re-sign, but I highly doubt there was a WWE source telling Meltzer, that we all think this is a terrible thing for the industry, that these guys are getting as much money as possible. Like, it just feels like unnecessary. Like, it just feels like an unnecessary add-on. So who knows about that, but it does look like all signs are pointing to Garcia staying, which is great. There were a lot of talks at the start of this year about him being in line for a push. Who knows if that'll be a second half of the year thing, or what the plans are going to be for that, but he's someone who I think will really continue to thrive as he gets that expanded role. And I think him and MJF at All Out are going to put on an absolute show. So really excited to see them back, see him back, and Swerve getting the money that he's worth and he's earned. Very cool to see as well. Apparently his contract wasn't even up until next year. They just kind of, him and Tony Khan decided, you know, I'm not getting paid what I should be paid, so let's figure this out. And like, it's cool that Tony Khan would be like, yeah, dude, let's get you paid. So hopefully that's the end of contract talk for at least a little while, until Rikishi brings something up again. But the rest of AEW Dynamite this week was really, really pretty good. There was a ton of fallout from All In, as you would expect. Swerve signed the deal. The All Out card is shaping up really fast, obviously, because the show is next week. So we only have 2 Dynamites in between the end of All In and then All Out in Chicago, which is a bit risky, but I think they lucked into it this year, where so many interesting things have kind of come out of All In and like the fallout of it, that you don't really need a whole lot of time to build those feuds. Whereas like last year's All In ended and it felt like they had to set up completely different things in 2 weeks time to get to All Out, with the added caveat of CM Punk getting fired from the company in the middle of all of that as well, right before going and doing a huge show in his hometown. So huge whole mess last year. And so this year it's nice to see them going into it controversy free. But right now the card is looking like MJF versus Daniel Garcia, Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland in a steel cage match, which the promo between these guys this last week on Dynamite to set this up, Swerve like really was firing on all cylinders here. And the announcers really put over this thought that like, hey, Swerve is kind of telling the truth with what he's saying here. Like, he's saying, hey, you're so obsessed that you've lost sight of who you are. The whole reason this feud started was because I didn't think you had earned your spot, and I needed you to find that fire, because I couldn't stand to watch someone, you know, as unmotivated as you just get the opportunities. And then he was kind of like, okay, you're so obsessed with me now, you're right back to square one. And it's such an interesting storytelling device, because you have the fans cheering for Swerve like this while he's saying like, yeah, I broke into your house and like stood over your kid. Like, yeah, I did these horrible dastardly things, but... And then the announcers are putting him over, like, he's got a point. Hangman looks upset, like he looks confused, like he realizes that he's right. And it's just such an interesting dynamic that I think is only really possible because you have these two guys, and these two guys are just so perfect together. Like I said before, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are like wrestling soulmates, and I don't know if these guys are that deep, but these guys bring something out of each other that is just the absolute peak of both of their games and abilities. Then we have Will Ospreay versus Pac for the international title, which they have only wrestled once before, and I believe it was a 30-minute time limit draw. So you know that that's going to be incredible. This week they had the moment where Ospreay came out to confront Ricochet, and Pac came out right behind him and hit him with a reverse Poison Rana on the stage section, and was kind of just like, "Hey, don't forget about me. Like, I understand that he's here and that's cool because he's the new thing, but like, buddy, you're not forgetting about me here." And so that match is going to be awesome. I don't know if there's anyone in AEW as good as Pac when it comes to like getting tons of cheers when he comes out and immediately getting the fans to turn those into like heavy boos. It's awesome to see the control that he has and the ability that he has to just really make a crowd swing on their emotions that fast. And then we have Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander in a Chicago street fight, which sounds awesome. Like right out of the gate, like that sounds amazing. The two of them have had some of the best hardcore matches in AEW already as a team. So them going against each other with a stipulation like this, like the willingness that they both have to just go and leave it all out there, like this is shaping up to be a really good match too. And the first couple matches have been a lot of fun, but this feels like it's that moment to take it to a completely different level. And then the main event angle is interesting. They seem to be going with the Bryan Danielson as world champion, and this is his last run. When he loses, he's done. Kind of like that old cowboy, like going out on his gun. Like, when I can't hang anymore, I'm done. Which is awesome. I think it's a storyline that could easily be done a lot more often in wrestling. I feel like it's so easy to get tension and stakes out of that. And so everyone was like, man, this sounds like it's setting up a run of like dream matches. Like, who's going to be the one that gets to dethrone him and retire him? Like, what are they going to do? Who's first up out of the gate in 2 weeks? And the answer is Jack Perry, which I don't know if anyone expected. And there's a lot of confusion online. I saw people kind of split on it, but something that I should write it down, but I don't remember who said this, but someone pointed out that Jack Perry was the one who got the pin on Bryan Danielson at Anarchy in the Arena. And then Jack Perry beat Darby Allin the night before, and Darby Allin had won one of the like battle royal matches to earn a title shot in the future. And so he pinned the current champion and the number one contender within the last like 6 months. And I'm sure that'll come into play at some point on AEW programming, but I appreciated that attention to detail from the AEW fans because that instantly made a lot of sense to me, and it clicked things into place, like, okay, that makes sense. We'll roll with that, and it'll be a lot of fun. Jack Perry walking into Chicago to wrestle Bryan Danielson, probably going to go great. He was a heat magnet the last time they were in Chicago. So I see what the vision is. The funny thing was he comes out and attacks Bryan Danielson. And then one of my biggest complaints about AEW in the build-up to All In was that Jon Moxley was nowhere to be found, not mentioned at all, and was just kind of MIA. And like I said, if that was, related to his extended vacation that he was more than owed, then I have no problem with that at all, obviously. But he actually emerged on Wednesday. He kicked off Dynamite with his New Japan version of his theme music, came out through the crowd, cut a really weird cryptic promo at Tony Schiavone where he said like, this is not your place anymore, and then was like speaking kind of cryptically like that all night. And then they showed him backstage talking to different security guards, only for Marina Shafir to kick them all in the face and align herself with Moxley, with a group that doesn't look like it's going to be Blackpool Combat Club affiliated either. It looks like he's kind of spinning off to do his own thing. That was Wednesday. And then this morning, Friday morning, I woke up to see that a lot of people were saying that the inspiration for this was the old Russell Crowe movie Romper Stomper, where Russell Crowe is like a Nazi gang leader. And obviously right out of the gate that sounds extreme, but if he's just pulling characteristics and things, and like depending on how this story is going to unfold, it's such an interesting idea. Like, I obviously they're not going to go into like crazy racist territory. I would assume, and I would hope they have more sense than that. But to have that kind of spiraling leader type is more what I kind of think of. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but I remember him like kind of just deteriorating as the movie goes on, and it kind of feels like that's what it's going to be, is where he brings everybody in and he starts getting a little too extreme, and everyone else is like, hey, we gotta stop this. And that's just hearing Romper Stomper. Obviously this is the first day of this new group or this new direction, whatever it's going to be. So I'm really curious to see how that's going to go. The big rumor when Moxley came out and was talking about this isn't your place anymore, like online, everyone was thinking it was going to be Shane McMahon, and everyone thought AEW was just going to run Invasion 2.0 with Shane McMahon, and a lot of people said maybe with Josh Barnett's Bloodsport and kind of like an affiliation there, where Jon Moxley is just trying to make AEW more of like a work, shoot, fight type company. And who knows? Like I said, this is just the first day, but a lot of these are interesting directions, and Moxley is the ace of AEW. Basically, he is their workhorse. So whatever he's involved in is going to take up a good portion of the TV time and the storytelling. So you know it's going to be something major. I hope it's not Shane McMahon. Just for like my opinion, I really hope it's not Shane McMahon that's coming in as a part of all of this. I just hope they let Moxley do his own weird thing. He watched Romper Stomper on TV one night and was like, we need that in wrestling. But like I said, we'll see. I kind of thought he was going to come out and just beat down Bryan Danielson and be like, nah, this is my turn to be the monster heel after that. But also, I don't know if fans are willing to boo Jon Moxley, because every time he's like teased going heel, like kind of still just gets cheered anyways because people love him. So I'm really interested in what this is going to be. And then lastly, for Dynamite for this week, Ricochet, obviously new to the company, made his debut at All In the Casino Gauntlet match. He made his Dynamite debut this week, wrestling Kyle Fletcher in a match that was awesome. It was a great match between the two of them. Kyle Fletcher continues to impress every time I see him. He just looks like he gets better and better. And Ricochet, on the other hand, looked awesome as well. Like, he looked completely rejuvenated and refreshed. He was moving super fast out there, hitting all sorts of crazy things that you would expect. It was a lot of fun to watch the match, but all of that to say that it felt weird that he would be this big signing that comes out and gets like a couple good minute run in the Casino Gauntlet match and then loses. And then his first match is with Kyle Fletcher in a feud that was started basically through a Twitter back and forth that included Ricochet saying something along the lines of like, I've like more people watched me wrestle on WWE Speed than have seen your matches, which is a wild thing to say, like walking into that company. And it just feels like it's running the risk of putting Ricochet right where he was in WWE, where he's this awesome wrestler. Everyone knows how talented he is. Everyone knows how good he is. And for whatever reason, he just kind of like stays in the same general area. Like Ricochet having the North American title in NXT was probably the time where he was at his peak in terms of like, he is a main factor in these title scenarios. So I just hope they have something more planned for him, because a brief gauntlet appearance and this match with Kyle Fletcher that started through a Twitter beef and then ended up, it was the main event of the show. It was hyped all night. So hopefully this is something where the presentation is going to be elevated for him, because I think he deserves it. And I think his signing should be treated to that extent, because he has that top tier star potential. I was just confused, and honestly, I couldn't tell if it was more like what that said about Ricochet's place on the card, or more about what AEW thinks Kyle Fletcher's ceiling is. because there's a really good chance they just think really highly of him, wanted to give him this like high pressure, highly watched first match for Ricochet, and give him that attention and see how he did in it, kind of like a sink or swim thing. So I don't know. I hope they have a lot more planned for Ricochet. I hope they have a lot more planned for him to show off his personality and his character a bit more too. I don't want him to just be like guy who comes out and does flippy stuff. Like as cool as it is to watch him do that stuff, like I really just want to see him get the opportunity to cook. And so I felt like bringing that up here just because it seemed like such an odd way to start his tenure with AEW. And I think that's everything from AEW and that WWE contract news and everything. So let's get to Bash in Berlin, which will be happening Saturday morning at 9:30 Pacific time, 12:30 Eastern time, because they are coming from Berlin, Germany, obviously. And then NXT No Mercy Sunday night, cap off the weekend, head into Labor Day with a nice NXT 4 p.m. start time. So let's get into those cards. So first up, we have WWE Bash in Berlin. It promises to be an insane crowd. The SmackDown crowd was obviously, as has been for most of these Europe shows that WWE has done, they have been out of control. They loved Ludwig Kaiser in his match with LA Knight, singing all night to him. So Gunther is probably going to walk into this as like the biggest hero ever. Like he's going to come out like he's peak Hogan here. Like they should give him like all the pyro, the big entrance. Like I know he would never because it's not his character, but like he could just do Hulk Hogan's whole entrance with the shirt rip and the hand to the ear and the ropes and like he could do it all and they would go crazy. So it is sure to be a crazy environment. WWE Triple H had mentioned earlier that they were really happy with how running these cards, these shorter, more condensed cards, has turned out for them, and this one is no exception. There's 5 matches here, which means everything will probably get a fair amount of time to tell their story and to unfold, which has just led to a higher quality of cohesion in the storylines, in performances in the matches, and in just everything being given the time it needs to be, digested and enjoyed and told properly. There's no rushing from spot to spot. And I think there's a benefit of that too that kind of leads to less freak accidents. I that's completely unfounded. I'm just saying, like, it's something that I kind of think is interesting. So I wonder if this relaxed, like, okay, we have some time to tell our story here, style of doing things is letting wrestlers be a little more like, okay, I don't have to rush from this to this, like immediately to cram everything we need to do in 5 minutes or in 7 minutes. So everything getting plenty of time has also had an impact on SmackDown, where matches are made to feel a lot bigger, where like the main event slot of SmackDown can really be something prominent. We've seen the tag team titles defended multiple times in the SmackDown main event the night before a big PLE. Just this SmackDown, we saw Mishin take on Nia Jax for the women's title. So they're being able to build these big matches onto the free TV basically, and that's something that they did not do for a long time, and I think it's a really smart strategy for them to finally start to pivot into. So all of that said, we have 5 matches on the Bash in Berlin card. Starting with, in Wikipedia order here, Cody Rhodes defending the undisputed WWE Championship against Kevin Owens in a match that Cody asked for. He said Kevin Owens deserves a title shot. Kevin Owens is my friend. And since then, everything has been about how Kevin Owens cannot be trusted because he just backstabs everyone. And so now this whole match is built around a will he or will he not turn on him and go to those depths to try to win, like we have seen him before, any means necessary. I think these guys are going to have a great match. I think it's going to be a super interesting story. I think Kevin Owens is in a really good spot where if he just can kind of like get a little bit more of that edge that he had before, where he's like kind of like modern Stone Cold in the sense of like he's not a heel, he's not a complete face. He can just kind of toe the line and do what he needs to do and work as his own entity, basically. I really think like a good brutal showing here where he loses and then doesn't snap and beat Cody Rhodes down, but just kind of gets mad and leaves, would go a long way towards kind of cementing him there, where like, okay, so he's not like a full-on dastardly heel, but he's also not like, oh shucks man, it's okay that you beat me, here's a handshake and a hug. So I don't know, I could see them doing that where they want to just keep the two of them together a little bit longer. But I think Kevin Owens snapping and finally kind of going a little bit more back into that would be a huge boost for him, because I think that's when he is at his absolute peak creatively. All of that to say, I don't think Kevin Owens is winning this. I think this is Cody Rhodes wins, and then we'll see what happens after the match, where, you know, kind of the real meat of the story will probably unfold. It could even be like a Sami Zayn situation where he holds up Cody's hand and they celebrate for a minute, and then boom, he takes him out, and that's that. We're off and running with a longer feud here, and Kevin Owens is, you know, the top or one of the top heels in the company. So I'm going to say Cody Rhodes wins, but I'm really glued to see what happens after this match, because I think that's really where it's going to be the most storytelling. Next up, we have the Women's Tag Team Championship match with the Unholy Union, Alba Fire, and Isla Dawn defending against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. And this feels like Bianca and Jade get the titles back here. They lost them in surprising fashion in the last European PLE, which I think was Money in the Bank. But I don't know, because here in Berlin, Isla Dawn and Alba Fire are going to be super over again like they were at the last one. So I think Bianca Belair and Jade, because I can't see either of them getting pinned and losing. So this tells me it's either going to be the Unholy Union steal a win, or there's a disqualification. Push this towards a triple threat with like Damage Control or I don't even remember their name right now. The Pure Fusion Collective, I think. The Sonya Deville, Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler faction. Like, I think there's going to be some type of interference here, because I can't see either Jade or Bianca taking the pin. So I'm going to say the Unholy Union retain, but that there's definite shenanigans that happen here. Next up, we have a mixed tag team match between the Terror Twins, Damian Priest, and Rhea Ripley. Do not like the name of the Terror Twins. It has not grown on me at all. And the Judgment Day, Dirty Dom Mysterio and Liv Morgan. This is going to be great. This has been probably the best story on WWE TV, the most consistently. The unfolding and imploding of Judgment Day, and this mega babyface rise for Priest, and Rhea kind of embracing the megastar status that she has been at. Um, all of that to say, this feels like it's probably a Dirty Dom and Liv win, because I think it's too early in the story for Rhea and Priest to get their pound of flesh back. I think this is going to be something where, you know, it looks really good and it pops the crowd a lot, but then Liv Morgan and Dom are able to steal it at the end, and then the baby faces have even more reason to hunt for revenge, and the fans get even more eager to see it. I think it just plays out that way. It makes the most sense. Dom Mysterio, I'll say it every week, is a heel that has turned more heel. I don't know how he does it. The man is a natural. He's a wrestling legend already. He gets it, man. I don't know how or why, but he is unbelievable in this role, and he is on the run of a lifetime to basically start his career too, which is crazy. So I think they pull out the win, and he continues just getting booed absolutely out of the building. And we continue to see just how far that dynamic will continue to explode and to unravel. Next up, we have CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in a strap match, which it's a really interesting stipulation, and I kind of thought this might turn into the WWE version of CM Punk and MJF's dog collar match from his time in AEW. I don't think it'll be that brutal. I don't think WWE is like super eager for that type of bloodletting. Even though they are moving to Netflix next year, who knows? Maybe blood will fly in Netflix. But I think this will be a really brutal, hard-hitting match, and I think that they have told this story close to perfection. I've seen a lot of split opinions on how prominent Punk's friendship bracelet, like his bracelet being a part of the story, like has been seemingly pretty polarizing. But I don't mind it. I think it shows the talent of those guys, that they're able to get you to buy in and kind of like care about what's going to happen with this friendship bracelet. And Punk in particular is really sold like how much it's impacting him to not have it. And he brought up at, I think it was Fanatics Fest, that all the fans gave him all sorts of different ones to be like, here's a new one here, and he's like, nope, it's not the one. Like these are great, but it's not mine. So I'm excited to see what happens here. I think CM Punk gets the win here, and we get one more match between these two and some even crazier stipulation. But I think the strap match is an interesting, kind of risky one to pull off well. But I think these are the two guys to do it, to have a great strap match in 2024 WWE. These are the two people I would pick, and the only other person probably would be Ilya Dragunov, would be someone that could probably have a hell of a strap match as well. So I think CM Punk takes this, and we go 1-1 into whatever this last match will be. Maybe Punk gets the bracelet back here, and we kind of let the last match be just a complete blow-off blood match between the two, where they're like, okay, all this stuff is out of the way. We got to settle our differences here. This has gone on too long. Let's just finish it. So maybe that's wishful thinking, but hopefully Punk wins this and we get an interesting development and wrinkle into whatever the last match will be, which then I really don't know. I don't know what I would pick or what I would think on who would come out of that, like who would win a third match hypothetically. So CM Punk, I think, takes this, and I think this is going to be like a 25-minute brutal like assault of a match. And then in our main event, we have got the World Heavyweight title, Gunther defending against Randy Orton. This is going to be an insane environment for Randy Orton here. For the last couple months since he's been back, really, he has been hearing the fans literally sing his praises and sing his entrance to the ring, and he's been getting these huge ovations and huge receptions, and it's been awesome to see. But he's going to get booed out of the arena here. No matter how beloved he is, no matter how much people like the I Hear Voices and the pose and the RKO, Gunther is going to come into this like a conquering hero. It is going to be insane, the amount of reaction he is about to get. So I really don't see Gunther losing here. I think it'd be an interesting thing to have Randy Orton win, just because who knows what would happen. They've set the stipulation that if Orton wins, he goes to Raw and Gunther goes to SmackDown because Raw needs the champion. So that's an interesting kind of wrinkle too, because dropping Gunther there puts him in the mix with the Bloodline, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, kind of a lot of opportunities there too. But I think also in the back of my head, it being Gunther in particular holding the title, I can't see Triple H giving him a short reign after how long he held the Intercontinental title for and how unbeatable he looked. I can't see him losing within his first defenses. So I think this is a Gunther retention. I think this is a end the show with huge applause, probably fireworks, and who knows, maybe they have the flag drop down with Gunther's face as the stars instead of MJF. Like, do something like that. Like, some weird, crazy thing. Like, I don't think they'll go that far into it, obviously, but I think he is going to get the hero's welcome here, and it's going to be a really interesting dynamic to see. I'm also kind of wondering if Randy Orton losing this and Kevin Owens losing in the beginning of the show, like, I'm wondering if that kind of plays into anything, because I think a lot of people are waiting for Randy Orton to attack Cody Rhodes. So like, I don't know. I think this is the main event. Like, I think Gunther Randy Orton is the main event, but I think there's an interesting world where Randy loses earlier in the show, Kevin loses in the main event spot, and then Kevin and Randy both beat up Cody Rhodes. Like, Randy comes out to talk sense into Kevin, and then they both betray Cody and attack him and beat him down or something. I can't see an international show like this ending like that, because I think a lot of the time these kind of have the like huge house show type feel. So I can't see them doing something that big a swerve on one of these shows, but I think it'd be interesting to pay attention to. I think the way they've been telling stories recently under Triple H, it's definitely something to keep an eye on, is how both of them react in either victory or defeat, because there has to be a plan for Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes at some point. It's just a matter of how we are going to get there. So I think Gunther wins this, and that is it for Bash in Berlin. We will see that show tomorrow morning, bright and early, first thing. So I'm going to catch my breath for a second, and we will cut right into the NXT No Mercy preview and predictions. So similar to Bash in Berlin, NXT is taking the smaller card approach. This one actually has one more listed match. It is up to 6 matches on the card. I will be going in Wikipedia order again. First up, we have got Wes Lee versus Zach Wentz in a singles match. It is a grudge match between the two former friends. There was an amazing promo segment on Tuesday's NXT between the two of them where Zach Wentz really, like, he dug deep and he pulled out a promo here. Like, people saying from AEW side, like, Daniel Garcia's promo against MJF was amazing. I think the Zach Wentz promo from Tuesday was right up there, to be completely honest. He was incredible in this promo, talking about how he was there for Wes Lee. He was recovering from his back surgery and always being there behind the scenes, even if he wasn't there, and how everything that happened to him in NXT the first time led to him growing up and getting smarter and caring about maximizing opportunities more, and how he was always rooting for. It was really like unbelievable, heartfelt stuff, and he sold it so well. And it just kind of continues to create a little inequality with Wes Lee's stance as a heel, being, you were holding me back, you did all this because you got fired, and it's just such an odd dynamic. He's continuing to say, you're just going to go back and wrestle for TNA while I'm a WWE star, and it's just such an odd combination of things all working together here. That said, even though Zachary Wentz just won the X Division title tonight at TNA Emergence, congratulations to him. I believe it is the first singles title of his career. Even though he just won that, I think this is Wes Lee, his time to continue building this heel character, to start moving towards that main event, top of the card NXT title run that I think he's probably going to get to sooner rather than later. They're moving to the CW in a couple months, and Wes Lee is the perfect type of champion for that, with his high impact offense and his ability to kind of just move around like he does. He's so athletically gifted. He's the perfect type of person to throw the title on, to get the most eyes on, a show on a brand new network trying to appeal to a new audience. So I think he's kind of heading there sooner rather than later. So I'm going to say Wes Lee gets the win here. But Zach Wentz really showed me a lot that I did not realize he had. I was not familiar with his game on that regard. I was blown away. Next up, we have Chase University defending the NXT tag titles against Nathan Frazier and Axiom. I really don't know with this match, with this feud, with these two teams. Every day, I feel like there's another shoe to drop in the Chase U Ridge Holland storyline. Like, I keep waiting for the day that Ridge Holland turns on all of them and betrays them all, and it doesn't happen, and I'm always surprised. And then the next show comes, and I'm always expecting it. So, like, I'm expecting it here, but at the same time, Nathan Frazier and Axiom, I would have thought would be in the Wes Lee, Zach Wentz spot right now, if you know what I mean. Like, I would have thought that one of them would have betrayed the other at this point now, based on everything that they did to tell that story and to set up that kind of split. So it really feels like this is like a powder keg where anything can happen with who wins, anything can happen with the fallout from it, and any teams that split up or anything like that. I think maybe Chase University retains, and we kind of have the belts on them longer as we sow the seeds of, okay, maybe Ridge is up to something. Maybe we shouldn't trust Ridge. And then after this, maybe this is the end for Nathan Frazier and Axiom. I really don't know. It's all been booked so well and unfolded at such an interesting pace that I really can't say what I think will happen. Like, I'm going to say Chase U retains, but absolutely nothing would surprise me with this match. Next up, we have Kalani Jordan defending the NXT Women's North American Championship against Wendy Choo. This, like, sleep paralysis nightmare version of Wendy Choo actually played out really good on Tuesday, because she had picked an opponent for Kalani to face heading into No Mercy on Tuesday's NXT, and it was Rosemary from TNA, who immediately fit right in with the creepy presentation that they've been giving to Wendy Choo. They had a lot of fun in their match. It was a really cool match. It was cool to see Rosemary get that kind of reaction by the NXT crowd as well. and they just they fit as a good pair. Like they played off of each other's aesthetic really well. That being Wendy Chu and Rosemary, obviously. But I thought the two of them, Rosemary and Kalani Jordan, looked very good in their match and worked really well together. But this is interesting because Kalani, it feels still like it's too early in her run to have her drop the title. It feels like it's still being established. She's still building the title. So I don't know if I can see Wendy Chu winning it. But then also, what's the point? What's the point of this dark heel turn if she loses every single feud she gets involved in? Like, it kind of feels like she's getting to a point where she has to win, or it's just going to kind of stop making sense. Like, people can be like, oh, I'm scared of you, but also, uh, like, you're going to lose. Like, you lose every match. So it feels like an odd dynamic that they have right now with her, and in particular, and it feels like she's going to have to start winning some things quickly to turn this perception around. So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say Wendy Chu wins, maybe through nefarious methods, maybe through underhanded tactics, but I think Wendy Chu needs this. I think this character needs to get some credibility, and I think giving her a reign as a dominant champion could be an interesting way to start that. So I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say Wendy Chu, new Women's North American Champion. Next up, we have Oba Femi defending the NXT North American Championship against Tony D'Angelo, which is a really interesting matchup. This kind of feels like it could be the Tony D'Angelo swan song, because I don't think Oba Femi is at the point where he's ready to lose quite yet. I think he's still super over. He's still so dominant, and he's still getting better. So putting him in with Tony D'Angelo, who is one of, if not the best, in terms of ability and tenure and experience on this NXT roster, it feels like they're giving him a chance to work with just a solid performer that they know will have a good match, and that this could be a high profile spot for the D'Angelo family to finally get called up to the main roster, or to hit some sort of new experience, to undergo some sort of change, because it's a lot of the same every single week. So I'd be interested to see what that looks like, and what kind of switching up their gimmick a little bit and adjusting it a bit could do for Tony D'Angelo and for everyone involved, like the entire D'Angelo family stable. So I think Oba Femi wins this. I don't think it's going to be like a super dominant squash match or anything, but I think he wins this and continues this reign that he's been on. And then we've got Roxanne Perez defending the NXT Women's title against Jada Parker, in a match that's probably going to be like a lot more fun and hard hitting than I think people are expecting. Kind of feels like, since all of these signing announcements with Julia and Stephanie Vaquer have been made, that Roxanne Perez has been leaning into more and more of these like hard hitting type matches. Sure, it's not by coincidence. Like, I'm sure it's a pointed decision. So I think it's going to be a really good hard hitting match. Both of them had a good face off segment this last week in NXT that ended with them noticing someone in like the backstage area that of course was not shown, but noticing someone, where as Jada Parker is like, oh, you want some, you can come get some too. Roxanne Perez was more like shook. She was a little more scared. So this could be the time Roxanne Perez retains, and then we launch into the debut of Julia or Stephanie Vaquer, or both. Like, their status is still kind of unknown. Julia just finished up in Japan and had her goodbyes, so she should be arriving at any point. And then Stephanie Vaquer, I believe, was having visa issues, so who knows if that's still ongoing, or if that's something that they're saying to kind of continue to buy time and avoid, raising that kind of expectation. But I think obviously once those guys arrive in NXT, everything's going to kind of kick up a notch and hit a different level. So I expect this to be a good match. I do think Roxanne Perez retains, though, and then we'll see what happens with after that, because I think after that it's going to just absolutely step up as far as the women's division goes for NXT. And then in the main event, we have All Ego Ethan Page defending the NXT Championship against TNA's own Joe Hendry in a match with Trick Williams as the special guest referee. Now, this is a lot of oh man, they're gonna put the title on Joe Hendry. Like all of the signs are there. Joe Hendry's super over in TNA, super over in NXT right now. He's just on an incredible run. Trick Williams lost the title because of underhanded Ethan Page tactics. Ethan Page, the smarmy heel who's saying everyone's out to get me. This is a conspiracy. This is awful. Just all the factors are here for like a really good, big, shocking, feel good Joe Hendry win. And I think that's probably why All Ego Ethan Page is going to retain. Um, this feels like Ethan Page is like, you're going to have to count the three, and then gets to gloat about that moving forward with Trick Williams to kind of set up their next match or their rematch. But I wouldn't hate it if Joe Hendry won, if they put the title on him just to see what happens and just to kind of get even more attention on the NXT and A collaboration. As much as I want it to happen, I don't think it will. So I'm going to say Ethan Page, against the odds, retains and has even more that he can brag about week to week if the fans will let him. Because that dude is talking over fans' chants just about every show. It is crazy how much heat he can generate and how good he is at helping his opponents get to that next level. And obviously Joe Hendry isn't someone that needs help, but when you have a foil like Ethan Page to work off of, I think it probably makes it a little bit easier to maximize that performance and that moment. So this might not be like the 6-star technical classic or anything, but I think both of these guys have such good styles that they'll blend well together. And more importantly, the crowd is going to be extremely behind Joe Hendry about as much as they're against Ethan Page. And if that crowd environment can kind of, create a special atmosphere, I think they could really tell a good story and really have a lot of people thinking that Joe Hendry might actually do the unthinkable and pull off the upset. And then maybe he CM Punks it out through the crowd and like hops the rail. But no, I'm going to say Ethan Page retains, but I would love to be proven wrong here. And that's it. We have a long weekend of wrestling ahead of us. So that is Bash in Berlin Saturday morning, NXT No Mercy Sunday night. There we go. Every match. Let me know in the comments what you were most excited to see, or if you are seeing this after both of the shows. Let me know what you liked the most. Leave a comment, or I will put an email address in the description and in the show notes. You can always send things into there as well. I'm always checking it, looking for good emails, so please feel free. I hope everyone has a great 3-day weekend this week. I hope everybody has a good long holiday weekend. Thank you everyone for watching, and enjoy all of the wrestling.